something we've all talked about,
Right.
just means the ramp up of even more obstacles to voting, of even more proposals and plans to thwart the election and to steal it, because there's no other way they survive this. And so that's why I actually think that's why a lot of the Republicans in office are going along with this again, because again, it's the only way they avoid the consequences, whether it's Nuremberg, whatever, because there's plenty of people who are in jeopardy here, and they're not going to, I don't think they're going to risk, oh, yeah, we'll hold a fair election so they can put us away. That's not going to happen. So that's my biggest fear now.
We're going to see that, Joe, you hit it exactly right. The pro-democracy Americans are going to overwhelm the MAGAs and the Trumps in November. I think it's fait accompli. Nothing, there's virtually nothing imaginable that can change the trajectory of this. Even if the war suddenly disappears, the chaos that they've unleashed, first with the tariffs and now with the war, into the inflationary forces within our economy, that doesn't change. Those will be lagging. The transportation costs that are spiking now in fuel, gasoline, diesel, that's going to last for the next 6-7 months. Even if everything stops today, those costs aren't going down, which just means that we need to now be looking past election day. We need to go back to 2020 and look at, okay, Trump's not going to be the one who leaves office and doesn't control the federal government anymore. He's going to control the federal government. John Thune and Mike Johnson in particular are going to start to take positions where they say, look, the House determines who our members are. Michigan sent a Democrat and a Republican from the 7th congressional district. We're going to seat the Republican. We think that's the valid one. We're going to get into that kind of Reconstruction era rump delegations coming from states, the MAGA candidates, the Republican candidates who lost, showing up and saying they won and it was stolen. I think we're heading into a period of turmoil after this election. And until Congress is seated in January, that will be 2020 and early 2021 on steroids.
Wow. Well,
but I also think
you think that's where we're headed?
Yeah. Look, I think that's what he wants to provoke. I think I think he's going to do this stuff. I think he's way underestimating how the American people will respond to that, because I think it will be pouring into the streets if he takes that. And then that's where we have the very big constitutional crisis or existential crisis of troops in the streets to put that down. Will they fall? All that stuff is coming. I really believe that. That's why I think people need to volunteer to be poll watchers, volunteer to stand in front of polls, put themselves between the polls and ICE or anything else that he does. I mean, I think look, we've all worked overseas, I think, in countries or seen countries where this stuff goes down. And we can all take a lot of lessons from how we, the people, responded and put themselves in harm's way. And I really believe peacefully that's what we're all going to have to do. And so volunteering now to be a poll worker, working to do what you can to keep the election, to monitor the election, to have other people there, to be at the next No Kings rally. I mean, all these things we have to preempt as much of this as we can.
Yeah, I think people don't have an appreciation to the degree to how much our elections are volunteer efforts. That they're not run by some massive corporation. They're not run by the Department of Elections. And you go out. Who are these precinct workers? They're volunteers, which is part of the reason, the idea that you could somehow scale massive voter fraud is so preposterous, because what are you gonna? I mean, you're gonna go out and blackmail little old ladies across the country? I don't know. How does this work? It just never made sense to me.
Heritage and others have like looked at this, and it's like 0.0000000.
Look, I've said this over and over. The problem we have in this fucking country is getting people to vote when it's legal.
Yeah.
Not when it's illegal. Like, I don't know who wakes up on election day and go, man, I think I'm going to commit a felony and go vote. I don't know. I mean, I think I would like knock off a liquor store first. That would be more fun. It just makes no sense. And, Joe, what you're saying about post-election, I worked in what turned out to be the only elections they had in the Congo. And it was actually an impressive group from the EU and from the same sort of people they put on elections, tried to in Afghanistan and everything. And I remember talking from the UN, talking to a guy who was one of these, you've seen these types that have been in elections around the world, a sort of lifelong do-gooder out there. And I remember he said something to me once, just sort of in passing. He goes, the thing about this democracy is somebody has to be willing to lose. And I know it was just like so simple and so profound, though, and once you shatter that sort of social bond between voters and their elections and their government, how do you get it back? I mean, I think it's very, very difficult.